So everyone, I'm looking forward to introducing you guys to Jodi Daniels. She is nice enough to join us to give us all the insight into what we need to know and do about GDPR. So you've probably heard this being mentioned. I know in this last week, all of a sudden it's like everywhere I turn. And every time you see these four letters together, you might be feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you've spent a lot of hours scrolling through the free information. I know I work with my husband. He's been doing that. So today we've Jodi offered to come here and to answer our questions. Jodi Daniels is a digital privacy expert with more than 19 years experience in privacy, marketing, strategy, and finance roles. And she's worked with multiple industries, and she's the founder of Red Clover Advisors, and she currently advises companies during all phases of their development cycle with respect to their online data strategy and data privacy needs. So thank you so much, Jodi, for joining us today.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
We were just saying before this that you're probably dreaming about this stuff because you're talking about it so much.
I really am. Is literally early morning till end of day. I know we'll get into kind of timing and all that good stuff, but GDPR is ready and people are on fire trying to talk about it. So it is a very busy time.
So tell us, like, what is GDPR?
So GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It's an EU privacy law. And then some people have asked me, what is EU? So the European Union, which is 28 member states, there's currently a data privacy law there now, but it's about 20 plus years old. And 20 years ago, we didn't have Zoom and Facebook Live and email and pixels and cookies and mobile phones and all these things of how we communicate, track data, target people. It didn't exist. And so times changed. And long story, we moved to GDPR, which is the modern day privacy law that will affect anyone doing business or serving an EU resident. So, why is the US person talking about GDPR? So that's because if you are in the US and you have a business and you are serving an EU resident, you have a Facebook pixel set for global, you have an email marketing campaign going to EU residents, that puts you in scope for GDPR. You don't have to have a physical location in the EU. You don't have to have employees. You just have to actively try and be targeting and luring people to you and to your business to be in scope.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, because I know we have a lot of women who are just starting their businesses too. And so is this just for big corporations, or it's really for anyone?
It is for anyone. There's no size, there's no revenue. There's a few things that if you're smaller, you don't have to do them necessarily, but for some of like my 20-person, 100-person companies, we still end up doing them because it just makes more sense. But if you are a one-person blog, and your blog has a Facebook pixel trying to get someone from France to your blog, you are in scope for GDPR. Now, what a big company has to do versus a solo practitioner is vastly different, but we all still have to pay attention to it. And it's very manageable. If you stop going to Google and ignore the press and the headlines, you can get through this.
Awesome. Okay, so let's stop going to Google. Tell us, like, what do we need to do to become GDPR compliant?
So there's a variety of different steps, and I'm going to start with helping people understand what is a privacy law, because in the U.S. we're, and I recognize we have people, potentially from all over the world, but for those of us who are in the U.S., we have, a bunch of different privacy laws, like a health law and a financial law, and this is a big, wide-sweeping privacy law. And what it means is how we collect data, how we use data, how we share data, how we store data, and how we have someone access data. So we're going to talk about what we call individual rights, or in fancy GDPR speak, a data subject, fancy word. So for those of us who have a business, and if you do ever read any of the emails that you're getting around GDPR, you might hear the word data controller. A data controller is basically the business that gets to decide what happens with the data. So processing is another GDPR fancy word. You're doing something with data. Like, you're going to use it, you're going to share it, you're going to chop it up, you're doing something with it, right? That's processing. So the controller is the business that is making the decisions about what happens with that data. The processor, also known as a vendor, a partner, a third party, someone else is doing something with data, and the controller directs them. So think of a company and an agency. I hire an agency to do my marketing for me, as an example. I'm the controller. I collected your name and your email. I pass it over to the agency. They're the ones that go and decide what to do with it. I'm the controller. They're the processor. So the very first thing is everyone needs to know who they are. Are you a controller or a processor? And you need to know, let's say you're a controller, who are your processors? Who are your vendors? And so the very first thing I tell people to do is you need to understand what kind of data you're collecting. What are you collecting? Make a list. You collect name, email, address, financial information, birth date, health information. Like, what kind of business are you? And what kind of information are you collecting? So make a list. In that list, think about who are you sending it to, because it's incredibly important to know who you're sending the data to. So you're going to have your list of what you collect. You're going to have your list of who you send it to. Now think about how you use the data. Do I email you? What kind of emails? Do I serve you because maybe you're an interior decorating business, so I bring you drapes? Or maybe you're a social media business and I help you with your Facebook ads, right? What kind of business are you, and what am I doing with the data? So I've collected it for hopefully some reason. Now what am I doing with it? So we have to kind of understand all those different buckets. And then you can start getting into the compliance part. So the compliance part are some rules. I have to tell you what I'm doing with the data. That's the privacy notice. And the privacy notice has to include a variety of different elements. So GDPR is kind of specific. And so you have to have an updated privacy notice. But you can't do the privacy notice if you have no idea what you're collecting, which is why I tell people first, like, don't go quite to the notice. You have to stop and think about, well, what am I collecting and how am I using and how am I sharing? Because those are the required elements, some of them in the privacy notice. So now you can start thinking about your privacy notice. The other big area is the marketing, email marketing. And that's the one that's getting a lot of buzz right now. Many of you are probably receiving emails asking you to opt back into things, and or informing you that their privacy notices have changed.
Yes.
So
I've gotten a lot of those.
I'm getting a lot of those all the time. So for really big companies, this might be a fundamental shift, and they have to communicate that to you, or they choose to, because, right, it's a big company and they want to do that for you. If you're a small company, you don't necessarily need to communicate your privacy notice change to the world. So unless we have some really big companies listening, if you're a small online focused business or a smaller business, you don't need to necessarily join the email privacy notice brigade. But we might need to do something on email marketing. When it comes to email marketing, we have to think about what kind of emails are we sending. So like in our privacy notice, I'm going to make everyone break it down. Are you sending messages to current customers? And what is a current customer? Is a current customer someone that that they paid for something in the last year? Like, do you have a weekly item, a monthly item, a subscription once a year? Did they buy it from you 5 years ago and we're still emailing them? Right? What is a customer? In GDPR, we can process data that for a business purpose. So if I got you 5 years ago and you haven't opened any emails from me in 3 years, I don't really have a basis to process you, and I don't know why I'm still emailing you, because you haven't opened anything in 3 years. You're probably not going to. So you have to think about, who are my current customers? So in the email marketing bucket, it's who are my current customers? And we have to define customers. We got to get a sense for who that is. And then there's sort of everybody else. So online, did I opt into a webinar? Did I opt into a lead magnet? Did I give you some kind of freebie? Did you come to a course? How did I get you on my email list? Did I stand outside with a clipboard and said, hey, would you like my free newsletter? Sign up here. So you have to understand the other bucket. And for most people here, we're a small business, you might be thinking, well, I'm a business talking to other businesses. Like, let's say you're a social media expert helping, a bunch of other people in their social media. So it's business to business. in GDPR world, I'm going to pretty much think you're kind of a consumer. So there's this concept of B2C, business to consumer, or B2B, business to business. But the business to business is more like larger businesses, sort of more corporation-like businesses, as opposed to more the really small companies, which is true for the US. We tend to be more of a consumer because we're often like a solo person and we're treated sort of in that consumer bucket. Why is all that important? Because if you do go and read, you'll see there's different rules that apply a little bit to B2B versus B2C. So for our purpose and our discussion, we're going to all assume we're in the B2C bucket. Most of these small online businesses are called sole traders in the EU. So we're all kind of sole traders. So if I have my bucket of people that are not my current customers, and I got them in from my clipboard outside or my webinar or my freebie, this is where people are starting to hear the buzz and the confusion of opt-in and consent and sending reconfirmation emails and all of that. So I can pause for a moment and see if you have any other questions, or I can just keep going. But in this department is where there's a lot of questions that we're going to break down around the email marketing part. So let me pause and see if there's any questions or anything you want to interject.
Yeah, no, that's what I was wondering is when it comes to emailing, the people who, we've had a list for a long, long time, and so it's like, what do you need to do for your current list that you have?
Yeah, so the first thing is figure out, if you can, who your US people are versus everybody else. So if you have people in your Canada list, you've likely opted them in already, but in Canada, there's actually an email law as well. So if I had to go, it's kind of US, then Canada, and then sort of Europe in terms of severity. So if you can, try and segment your list of who is in the EU. And many of the email service providers are helping you do this. Okay. And they're using IP addresses. You might be able to do tags. You might be able to use address. So first step, can you segment your list?
So maybe like check with your email provider.
Check with your email service provider because they're all a little bit different in how they're managing this, but most of them are marching towards helping you figure this out.
Okay.
So you want to try and figure out EU versus non-EU. So now you have your EU list. They're here. Like I said, in the customer world, not everyone on your list, and this is something, let's chop off GDPR. We should probably be doing this anyways, right? We should be scrubbing our list because if I opted in 3 years ago and I haven't opened anything in 3 years,
you're off. Bye-bye.
So when I hit unsubscribe, because maybe I'm fearful, a lot of people fear if I hit unsubscribe, it's not gonna work and you're gonna know it's me and not opt me out. So some people don't wanna do that, even though it mostly it works. So right, if I haven't opted out in 3 years or haven't read anything in 3 years, I'm probably not super valuable of a customer for you and you should probably scrub me. So, but this is actually where I think GDPR is going to be helpful, is we're going to end up with a list that's going to be really valuable and really engaged in the people that we want to talk to. I know we hear about, I need to grow my list, I need to grow my list, and it's fun to talk about all the people on my list. Right, first off, you're paying for that really big list because the email service providers.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Charge you by person.
Yeah.
The social media platforms have played with our psyche, and there's science behind this about how they lure us back to the sites. We need the likes and the comments and the number of people in our group. Well, that just means we spend more time there, so they have more ads, which they make more money. So it's going to be okay if we end up with a smaller list than we started with before this call. But we need to pare down and figure out who are our active, engaged people on our list. And people will ask me, well, what number is that? There's no perfect number. I don't have a perfect number. And every business, I think, is a little different. Do you send emails every day? Do you send emails once a week or once a month or once every 6 months or once a year? Like, what is your business and your product? It's all a little bit different. You really have to sort of sit and look at your metrics and decide, well, how often do I think someone should email me? And what's reasonable versus what is, okay, I guess they're just not interested in what I have to say. And the email service providers even have a bulk unsubscribe option that they built in for you to ensure you can just chop off all these people and not even worry about it. So I would tell you, in the advertising industry, a lot of time companies are using 13 months as a baseline, but that's not a hard number. That's just an example that you might want to use. So you want to figure out what is that group, and of that group of people, that's the group of people that you likely need to get consent to be able to continue marketing to them, because GDPR is retro, it's not retro, like it doesn't, it's not prospective only. It includes all the people that are on our list already.
So if they haven't engaged with us in the, like you just said, throughout 13 months, then it's time, then you have to get permission again.
Then then you have, no, actually for all, so two parts. Of the 13 months, let's say 13 months is our window, and I signed up with you 18 months ago. I've done nothing. I would say you chop me off your list, just like chop, karate chop. But of the people left within my 13-month window, and I'm not a current customer, I signed up with you on a lead magnet, a freebie, a webinar, my checklist outside. Those people are the ones you have to go back and get consent for.
Okay.
That's the repermissioning campaign that you're starting to see people do. Going forward, so that kind of takes care of what you have to do. Going forward, what are you supposed to do? So here's my awesome lead magnet. Come sign up for this amazing 3-part series. Here's the PDF, enter your email, and we're going to get it. There's a couple pieces that you have to make sure you have in that email sign up consent box. You have to make sure it's freely given, no pre-check boxes. Don't wrap it up in, I can't be forced to receive your marketing tied to some other bundle. I have to have a link to my privacy notice, and I need to be kind of specific. I don't have to necessarily give you the title of every single email I'm ever going to send you, but I can't just say, hey, receive emails for me forever. Like, that would be great. Would you like to receive emails from me? It needs to be a little bit more tailored. Would you like to receive marketing tips and tricks on a weekly basis? Would you like to receive, if I'm in the meal planning business, would you like to receive my meal planning tips and tricks or would you like to receive, I work with third parties. So for example, if you do any kind of affiliate marketing, I wouldn't tie in my marketing that you do as a business with also getting affiliates, because then I've kind of tied, like, well, I'm stuck getting all your affiliate stuff, and you're like, that's not really the point of GDPR. It's supposed to be specific. I opted in. I want to hear from you. I want to get the amazing tips and tricks that you have to offer me, but I'm sort of tired of hearing about all your other friends because you want to make other money. I don't want to hear about that. Right. So I would recommend that those are sort of separate. I know that some people who love affiliates, that's not going to really work as well, but that would be my recommendation.
So this is for everyone, right? Because I know we talked about the first step was like segmenting EU and everyone else, but we're protecting everyone, right?
Only from the EU.
Only from the EU.
So if you're in the US, keep marketing away. Have a field day.
Okay. So you're just taking that EU list and doing the other steps of getting the.
Yep. The reason to segment is so that you don't do this for your entire list, because you don't, if you'd like to, absolutely, you can. Some people don't want to deal with this. They'd rather just make it all. I'm getting repermissioning campaigns as a US citizen from US companies.
Yeah.
And they know that I'm in the US, but they're still they're just asking everybody because that's just how they want to do it. Other companies are just going to get the EU list. So if you can get just your EU list, you only have to do everything I'm talking about to just the EU list.
Okay.
It's your choice which way you want to go. The whole thing or just the EU list.
Okay.
So, and again, the email service providers are helping you. So some people are thinking, well, I don't know how to do code. I don't know how to do these boxes. So we have to think of the language to use. The email service providers are helping make the tools easy for us to be able to manage. So they have the right consent boxes. You want to make sure you work with an email service provider that is getting ready for GDPR.
Yeah.
And if you're working with one that is not GDPR ready, I advise you go shopping and find a new one. And this would be true for any vendors, but just on email marketing as an example, many of them, and they're all a little different. So you got to get familiar with their tools, but they're having the little check boxes. They're tying it, they can flag many of them can flag just EU people. So again, get familiar with your email service provider. But the hardest part that everyone on this call has to listen to and understand is we're responsible for the language. So what should that opt-in say, right? They can't decide what our business is. So what should it say? What is the privacy notice? We have to be able to have the right privacy notice and be able to link to that.
Exactly.
But we have vendors who are helping make this easier for us. We just have to do our part.
Right. So I know there's a deadline, and you were going to tell us about the deadline. And as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing how much knowledge there still is to get. Like, this is, I feel like, going to be an ongoing thing, not something that just ends on May 25th.
That is exactly
right.
That is exactly right. Yes, it is not a line in the sand. So it's actually been in.
Because May 25th is my birthday, and I don't want to work on my birthday.
May 24th for you. So everyone, this law's been around actually for a while. It just hasn't been enforced. Okay. So it's been in effect, but not enforced. And so on May 25th is when it begins to be enforced. And so people say, well, who's going to enforce this thing? So it comes from what's called a data protection authority or supervisory authority. Those are the people responsible for the privacy laws. And there's one in each of the EU member states. And so some people will say, but I'm a small business. Are they ever going to come and find me? And I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Are they probably coming and trying to find you? No, maybe not necessarily. However, here's where it becomes important. Your customers who are EU citizens have an expectation of privacy. And many of them are looking forward to GDPR and will not differentiate between the size of the business. They're just going to do business or just give their information with companies that are compliant and companies that are doing what they now know to be the way it's supposed to be done. Yeah. So if you don't comply and you don't follow along, they might not come to you and they might not give you your information. If they give you your information, this might be a good time to talk about one of the other rules or parts, which is called individual rights, or that fancy word, data subject rights. So I, as an EU resident, can come to you and say, I want access to the data you have on me. I want to correct the data you have on me. I want you to delete the data I gave you, not just unsubscribe, which should be in every single email, marketing, not like customer, not customer. But I want you to delete me from your system. I want you to give me, so I can port in what they call a machine readable format, Excel, Word, like something that's not code and gobbledygook, basically, usable. The data that I gave you. So did you take an order? Here's all the orders that you have. What kind of data did I give you? Here's all that information. I need to be able to manage all of that. So individual rights. So if you remember the very first thing I said businesses should do, and it was figure out what data you have and where you have it. You can't build your privacy notice without that. You can't really build your email marketing without knowing, right, what data you're collecting and how you're using it and what vendors you're using to do the email marketing. And you absolutely cannot manage individual rights if you have no idea what data you have and where you have it. Because when I come to you and I say delete my data, you have to think, what data do I have and where is it? I need to know, oh, right, I can go to my email service provider and I'm going to delete you over here, but you know what? I also exported that and I keep it over on my Google Sheet over here so that my VA can look at it too. So I need to go find that and I need to delete you. Or, oh, so I have to delete you from my custom audiences list too, and delete you from there. So you have to know where all that data is to be able to do it. Yeah. Again, many of the email service providers and vendors are creating kind of self-access tools to help you go in and be able to do the delete part. So not just opt out, but actually help you do the delete. And so when I had mentioned before, making sure your vendors are GDPR compliant, this is one of those other areas. So not just email, but I need to know that this vendor knows what to do. Can they help me? Can they support me? Because that's their role, is to help support me with the data that I have in a GDPR world.
Interesting. So we have a couple questions that have come in. Sandra Berger, I know she has an interesting question. If someone signs up from US but then moves to EU, what about vice versa?
So if I am in the US and I move to the EU, I fall under GDPR. But if I'm in the EU and I come over to the US and if I'm like visiting in the US, no. If I've moved here and, I've moved to California now, I'm under US.
Okay. And then
unless like they have dual residency or something strange like that, but that's getting really complicated and really narrow. So hopefully in that situation, I would just assume that you're sort of in the US situation.
And Cindy asked, I think we kind of answered this. She asked, what if they opted in before?
We did answer that one, but just to make sure it's super clear. So if I am a current customer, you can keep marketing to me with things that are relevant to what I've purchased. I bought a course from you. Here's a new update to the course. You know what? You liked the course so much, would love to work with you one-on-one. Like it's relative. If it's, you know what, you bought this course, hey, I sell essential oils. They're really great. Would you like some? No, like that's not connected. That's where it's completely different. Unless you were in the essential oil business, but let's pretend that you weren't. So if you're not a current customer and I'm sort of the prospect, right? I came in through a lead channel and you're trying to nurture me, those need to be in a consent manner. And that is where you'll start seeing those repermissioning campaigns come through and where you'll see your email service provider help you be able to do the consent part.
Yeah, and I mean, from the business owner side too, I mean, some people on the call might be like overwhelmed just like listening to all this, but it's actually like, as I'm listening to it, it's almost a good thing because you're checking in with the people, you're making sure that they want what you're sending them. I mean, and now you're only going to send them what they asked for. I mean, this is like, it makes us get more focused, right?
It does. So I call it the secret weapon. I think GDPR,
yeah, I saw that on your page, and I like that
in marketing, and I think it can be your competitive advantage. Remember, I told you that EU residents are going to have an expectation. They're not going to hand over their information with people that they don't think are going to value it and are going to adhere to the rules. And so if you do, you're ahead of the competition. And so then when someone's going to tell me, well, then everyone's going to be there. Okay, but what's going to happen is now you're not going to be flooded. I'm not going to have 4 million emails unless I guess really opted into all of those, but probably not, right? I'm going to get tailored messaging and I'm really going to be able to spend time developing a relationship and making it personalized to you. So I think you're going to see the way people are doing email marketing or just marketing in general is going to change for the better because it's going to really enhance the conversations. And then from a data perspective, I think it's a good thing to kind of know what what data you have and where your vendors are, and it'll force folks to get a sense of the process of their business. And so I think at the beginning it's foreign, right? If you just do what your specialty is day in and day out, and I'm this crazy person throwing all this compliance words at you, that can be a lot. And I still try and break it down. I imagine
you've done a good job simplifying.
I work with attorneys who use all kinds of fancy words, and I pride myself on really trying to use like basic English that my 8-year-old daughter can understand. So it's a matter of sort of stepping back and breaking it apart into those little steps. And if you do each little baby step, before you know it, oh, that actually wasn't so bad. Like I got to the end. I understand what I'm doing.
Exactly. So you've put together a solution for people to help them use this as their secret weapon. And I know you sent that to me before this call. I was like, oh, this will be really valuable. So tell them what you recommend, like moving forward. Do they need to work with someone else to do this? Is there a DIY option? What do you recommend? How do we move forward?
Yes, so there's a couple options. So you can go to Google and sort through all the free information that exists out there and try and piece it all together. And you might be right or wrong. you could hire someone on a one-on-one basis. And so you can hire a consultant, you can hire an attorney, you can hire someone to help you through it. Or you can find someone like me, I'm not the only one, that would be lovely to work with all of you, who has some GDPR knowledge, who can help guide you through. So I advise you to pick one of those options. Don't do nothing, because it's going to come and we can't ignore it. So I personally think the Googling approach that's a lot of time, right, that you could be spending in your business, and you're not a GDPR expert, and I don't think anyone here should be a GDPR expert. I think everyone should just know what they need to know. So the kit that I put together is to try and make that really simple for people, and really make it a cost-effective solution, because the middle option of hiring someone is really expensive. And this is a kit with what I believe you need to get started if you are a small business. It includes a privacy notice workbook, which means it's going to take you step by step, thinking through all the kinds of data that you're collecting, how you're using it, where you're sharing it, so that by the end, you have what you need to plop into a privacy notice template. And I have a privacy notice template that goes with the workbook. Another part is an email marketing workbook. We've talked all about this email marketing, and there was a lot of questions. So you have to be thinking through all those questions. In the piece for consent, I have, my gosh, there's probably like 20 or 25 items to think about kind of on a consent checklist, or an email marketing checklist rather. So when you add all that up, there's a lot to think about. So I have a workbook designed, and it's like literally a workbook, like with sections, right, to help you think through.
Do we get to check boxes?
There's only one page of check boxes in the workbooks. But to help you think about the email marketing that you're doing, and who are you sending it to, so that at the end you have a really great understanding of your email marketing program. And then I do have checklists, more of the check boxes, but designed to think through, just like I take my corporate clients through all the different aspects of, we didn't even talk about cookie consent banners, but if you use a Facebook pixel or a Google pixel or any kind of advertising or analytics pixel on your site, you need a cookie consent banner in the EU. There are free tools that are out there, but you must make sure you have them. You also must make sure you have the right language for each of those pixels in your privacy notice, because many of them require certain language in your privacy notice. So those would be covered in my privacy notice template. And then, so my checklist, so I have a cookie consent checklist, a security and data breach checklist. So there is data breach regulation, data breach laws that come with GDPR. You'd have to report if there was something that was constituted of a data breach within 72 hours, which is really, really fast.
Yeah.
So helping you think through how to protect data from a security and a data breach perspective. There's a checklist for all of those. A checklist for the individual rights. So all that access, data, deletion, data portability, all the things that you want to be thinking about. And then a vendor checklist. So I have a funny story. When I was creating first a workshop for GDPR, I found a vendor and was all excited, but they had a link to my email marketing, except it was a pre-ticked box, which I can't have the privacy person signing you up for GDPR seminar telling you can't use a pre-ticked box, and then you have a pre-ticked box.
Yeah.
So I couldn't use that vendor anymore, and I had to find a different vendor. So real life story of, you really have to understand your vendors, and it's a great story now. It worked really well.
That's funny.
And then I also include a data inventory template, so an Excel sheet helping you think through all the different parts that you want to have in one central place to think about for your business. And finally, if you were to get an individual rights request, meaning I want to delete my data, I want to access my data, I have some template language that you can use to reply to all these people, so that you don't have to keep thinking about
all these people. Like, oh.
Well, it could be 3 people, but
Okay.
you don't have to reply to any, so you don't have to think about it.
Okay.
There's some form language so that you can do what you do best, and
right.
not be thinking about, how do I manage individual rights? That should not be your job. So I've tried to make all of that simple, and you get all of that in one little DIY package.
Yeah, and I posted the link. If you're watching this on Zoom, I posted it in the chat box. But if you're not watching it live with us right now and you're watching the replay, you can go to www.classycareergirl.com/GDPR, and that will direct you to check out this page, look at all the stuff that's included. And in my opinion, it's pretty affordable. I was shocked by the price. So thank you for making that affordable for people.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's what was the price again?
$99.
Awesome.
Yeah, $99. So the idea is to take the pain and overwhelm out. And before I did this DIY kit, and it's actually still available for people who wanted the like hand holding. And so I did a workshop where we spent, this is going to sound crazy, 3 hours. We did an hour and a half on privacy notices and an hour and a half on email marketing. And the feedback was, wow, that went really fast.
Nice.
It flew by. And so those recordings plus all the materials are actually still available. People keep requesting because they really liked the recordings. But the feedback was that it was really valuable, really useful, and it took the overwhelm out because it's designed to just be simple and basic and walk you step by step through the process. And all the questions or the items that are on the checklist, like the questions that I have on the checklist, are designed literally based on all the, I mean, I spend my day helping corporate clients on their GDPR readiness. And I want to make sure that businesses of all sizes are covered. So I'm taking my daily knowledge and expertise and packaging it up into something that is manageable for an online business.
Awesome. So half a day, we can get this done. Just kidding.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Awesome. One last question from Sandra. She was wondering about Great Britain, if they leave the European Union because of Brexit, or will it still apply because they're on the European continent?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So there's nothing formal and official that I can tell you. The most I can tell you is that I don't think they're not going to comply. So it will, if anything, I think what will happen is it won't affect, I think, you, but all the vendors that you work with, it makes it more complicated for them to share data back and forth. So I wouldn't count on Brexit meaning I don't have to comply. And I have a lot of clients with just UK operations, and we are knee deep in GDPR. So still here.
Oh my goodness, you must be busy. You're gonna like celebrate on May 26th, I think.
I am.
You have a trip planned?
I don't, but I should come up with one. I think sleep, just maybe some sleep and sitting and not working for a day or minute might be great.
Well, we thank you for distributing your knowledge and helping us out and not forgetting about us little folks. And it's just very helpful to actually like talk it out with someone and to hear from a real person rather than reading all the articles. So thank you so much, Jodi, for being here.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I really appreciate it. And if there's any other questions from your audience, you know how to find me, and would love to answer them at any time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.